Constitutional expert and author of Battlefield America on my program, I think 2 weeks ago on television, and it was one of the most frightening hours I think I have spent because he knows what's going on. He is actually an attorney that is defending, with the Rutherford Institute, defending these outrageous overreaches by the federal government and the local police and what's happening. You know, what brought this up was last hour we're talking about a woman in Kansas. The cops bust down her door, and she's like, whoa, 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 where's your warrant? They don't have a warrant. It's the Department of Children and Families. They keep her out of her house, say that she can't go in there until they get a warrant, which is unconstitutional. They say that they had a complaint that her children were in danger and that there was drug use in the house. As it turns out, what the complaint was a teacher heard her son in a drug debate or presentation make a defense for medical marijuana. Mom is on cannabis oil for her Crohn's disease. So the Department of Children and Families is called by the school saying,
we think there's a drug user in our school. We think this child is in danger.
She has lost, even though it was all legal, she has now lost custody of her son. Is this right? And this is only one case. John is here to tell us about Battlefield America. Hi, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How long have you been doing this?
About 40 years.
And how bad is it getting compared to even 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
I would say in the last 20 years it's zoomed, especially after 9/11. It's moved quicker under Barack Obama. With all here's what people have to understand: technology is moving so fast right now. In a couple of years, drones are going to be doing that job that happened to the lady in Kansas. They're going to be arriving, floating overhead. The police are going to be there. That's how fast things are moving. I mean, it's frightening. As Judge Napolitano, who endorsed my book, said after he read the book, he had trouble going to sleep. We're up against 80,000 SWAT team raids a year where they're crashing through people's door. The recent case in Ventura, California, where the police, a mother heard something outside. She opened the window and she saw a policeman staring at her with a rifle. They surrounded, came in the house. He said, please don't do anything in that room. My baby's in that room. They threw a flashbang grenade in and burned the kid. There's a mentality out there with government officials generally, health and social services, social workers, which we deal with a lot. They're very much trained to be very, very aggressive, ferret out the wrongdoers. But many times the so-called wrongdoers are people that used to be just normal parents, like the mother we defended in Florida who let her kid walk down a half a block, basically a half a mile to the playground. He drove by it every day. On a Saturday afternoon, she was cooking dinner. Police saw him in the playground, picked him up, put him in the back of the car, brought him home, didn't tell the mother he was in the back of the car. When they came to the front door, they started talking. She started crying. She thought something bad happened to her kid. The kid sitting in the back of the car. By the way, he had a cell phone. He and his mother were contacting each other. He's freaking out. He comes up, and they handcuff the mother behind her back on the front porch. Kid sees it, starts weeping, and says, "Mommy, this is my fault." $5,000 fine, 5 years in prison she was charged with. We swooped in and got everything dismissed. But the point is, these are parents who, I mean, Glenn, I don't know about you, Glenn, but I walked 2 miles to school and home from school when I was in grade school.
Oh, easy. Yeah. We talked about this with a woman last week. Where was she? There was another woman last week that let her child, or two children, in Maryland.
Yes. That's all they did.
9 and 6 or 10 and 6 walk. Literally, she dropped them off literally 1 block away at the park. When the kids didn't show up, the Department of Family and Children and Families had swooped in, taken the kids. She didn't get them back until 11 o'clock at night, and she's freaking out. When I was growing up, if there was a concern, they would have said, "Hey, where are your parents?" My parents, they're at home. And if it was a block away, the cop would have walked them home.
Well, the key issue here is who's the parent. I mean, more and more the government's becoming the parent. They assume they're the parent. They can dictate to kids what they learn, what they say in school, even the words they say. If the parents say the wrong words, parents are being disciplined. We actually see the cases. So that's one big issue we're dealing with is the state now has decided that it's going to be the parent. But that's all part of the move that I see in terms of how the government's reacting to us. The government does not view us like they did, let's say, 30 years ago, which is people with some amount of respect. I see most government officials dealing with today slamming veterans face down, taking them out of their homes because of Facebook posts. We've had cases like that.
Explain that one.
Well, case was a fellow named Brandon Robb, 26-year-old Marine, served in Iraq, Afghanistan. What he did was, he saved people's lives, troops' lives. He took mines out of the ground. He was a mine diffuser. And so he went over there. He came back, and he was upset with President Obama. He's a 9/11 truther as well, which will get you in a lot of trouble today because Janet Napolitano in a memo said that's an extremist that has to be watched. And so Brandon opposed Obama's executive orders, Bush's executive orders. On a Saturday morning, he had just gotten through jogging. He heard a noise outside. Being astute, he walks to the front door without his shirt on. He just got through jogging, and there was all these guys rushing toward his house in black outfits and plain clothes. Come to find out, it was the local police working with the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and the Secret Service. And he opens the door and says, "What's up, guys?" And they say, "We're concerned about some of the things you're saying on Facebook." They asked him to step out. When he did, they handcuffed him behind his back. Brandon all the time was saying, "What did I do? What did I do?" They take him and slam him against the fence and rip his back open. When he gets to the police station, he asks for a bandage. They put a prison shirt on, which he said stuck in the cuts and hurt very, very badly. They put him in a prison cell. A psychiatrist gave him a 5-minute interview and said because of his 9/11 views and because he paused, this is a 5-minute interview, he had a mental problem. They put him in a mental hospital for a week. We had to file a lawsuit to get him out.
Oh, my God.
That's a veteran. That's American.
Wow.
Now we're getting these calls.
Now, wait a minute. There's more to this story, John. At least that you told me that if I have the story straight, unless it's another one, they were about to inject him with drugs.
He called me on the Thursday before we got him on a Saturday. He said, "John, I'm really frightened." And this is a Marine, 6'4" Marine he's built like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I said, "What's got you scared?" He says, "There's a psychiatrist here who says he's going to brainwash me and force medications on me." And I said, and the psychiatrist is listening on the phone as he called. I said, "Well, you tell that guy that, A, number one, you're violating the law. You can't force medications in most states without a court order. And number two, we're going to sue that guy when this case," and we filed a lawsuit. We're in federal court with the case now. But
wow.
Yeah, that one. And by the way, Glenn, there's 1.5 million of these so-called civil commitments that happen each year in America.
What does that mean?
That means a board of social workers and psychologists, if someone's about Facebook pages or neighbors complain about them, they meet and decide whether or not this individual may be a danger. And the police go get him and take him into a hearing similar.
1.5 million Americans every year?
Civil commitment. In Virginia alone is where this fellow resided. Where I reside, there's over 20,000 a year, civil commitments. And what was key here is his mother called us, and I talked to her. She was crying. I actually called the police station and asked what he had done. The police chief said to me, he said, "Oh, he's done nothing wrong or illegal." I said, "But you handcuffed the man behind his back." He goes, "We're just concerned about his Facebook post." These are civil commitments decided by social workers and psychologists in Virginia. In other states, it's very similar.
So, John, I feel the same way I felt last time I talked to you.
An NSA agent of 20-some years met with me last year. He was passing. He likes what we do, my work, and he said, "I just want to tell you we're following the Soviet model." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, you're going to see more people detained in mental hospitals. That's what the Soviets did." And then he said, the word Homeland Security, by the way, is a Soviet term. I didn't know that until he told me that, and I researched it. It's true.
Okay, so, John, what does the average person do? How can we help? What do we do?
Well, education precedes action. I mean, most Americans are going to have to start studying the issues. They're going to have to read, books by me and others who are talking about these issues, get educated. The federal government does not listen to us. There was a recent study by Princeton and Northwestern University that concluded unanimously, basically, that we live in an oligarchy now. There's a moneyed class that runs the country, and the average voter has little impact on the federal level. So what I urge citizens to do is get active locally. Get down to that city council who's sitting there. When somebody, like this, what happened to this woman in Kansas, the city council should bring those policemen in and instruct them never do that again unless they do it legally. Form civil liberties oversight committees, I'm telling people. Get your neighbors together. In fact, Brandon Robb's mother has now, I've talked to her, she actually has a phone thing she does every Saturday with about 20 people, and they're watching the community now. That's a good thing to do because then you don't have to travel. You can email back and forth. But if you email, I'm just warning people, the government reads all your emails now, so they'll know what you're doing. So get active locally, get your picket signs. You can make a local government can say no to the federal government. They can say no to a state government. It's called nullification. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said nullification is basically the basis of freedom. Local government governs. You know them. You're next to them. That policeman, by the way, in your community, local policemen, they should be local policemen, not federal troops. And we're seeing more federal troops now moving into communities and working with policemen.
Well, we're seeing, I mean, geez, I live in a town that literally has 800 people in this town.
Uh-huh.
They've got an MRAP.
Yes.
For what?
Well,
what do they have an MRAP for?
Your safety.
Florida need 36 grenade launchers, okay, and 47 MRAPs.
Who has that?
In your state of Texas, I think they have 74 MRAPs and $24.3 million in Texas, $24.3 million worth of aircraft equipment. They haven't designated what it is, but I'm sure it's Black Hawk helicopters and those kind of things. So your local police generally, and you know, we talked about when I was on your program, and I detail it in the book, they're basically now federalized. They get all their equipment from the federal government, Stingray devices which fit in their car, and they drive by your house. They're fake cell phone towers and draw all your information off your cell phone. I don't know if you saw this, but St. Louis just announced they're going to have real crime time centers, which is a big room with like 8 plasma TV sets. They connect to your cell phone. Wherever you drive, they can track you now. If you're going to see a psychiatrist, you're going to church.
Okay, I'm going to go through
another inappropriate place. They're watching everything you're doing. They're called real crime time centers. People should look that up. That is frightening.
John, thank you.
You do though. 2 billion emails a day that NSA downloads, and they admit to hacking into 160,000 Facebook pages a day. What in the world? But let's go back to the Fourth Amendment we talked about earlier. The Fourth Amendment says don't do surveillance on American citizens unless you have probable cause. So they're undermining the Fourth Amendment totally.
Okay, John, I'm going to go because I think I'm going to just wet myself if I don't hang up the phone.
Back. I mean, listen, I've seen some communities have actually sent the MRAPs back. Citizens have stormed the meetings and demanded it. Politicians count numbers. You know that, Glenn.
The name of the book is Battlefield America, The War on the American People. I highly recommend that you read it. This is a guy who has been in the courtroom battling this for years and years and years and years. And on the front lines, John Whitehead, Battlefield America, available wherever books are sold now. Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Bye-bye. Was I right?
About what?
Him?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I knew that, though. I knew he was...
It would just make you ill.
Yeah.
Make you ill.